Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. It's time for a good old-fashioned meltdown. As you saw by the name of the show, nothing better to do on a Thursday night. If you are hot and you feel like a meltdown, turn to the fans. They'll chill you out, won't they? Probably not. Once again, there has been another 48 hours since the last time I did one of these shows, and the fan base is doing what the fan base does. Today, it's the fact that Chelsea might hijack Tottenham's move for Mohamed Kudus in some reports. In other reports, Tottenham are front and centre. Don't forget Eberechi Eze. That one's not dead. It wasn't even alive. It's certainly nothing's going on there. But the good old-fashioned fans of Tottenham Hotspur, well, they love a good old-fashioned meltdown. And we're going to discuss all of that, plus a bunch of other topics like Christian Romero. Maybe Heung Min's son, Heung Min Daddy, has found his new home over in good old US of A. How do we feel about that? And then we're going to sort of round it all up, I guess, into the usual sort of shenanigans of, you know, how do we spend the money? If there is any money, we've got Connor here to sort of walk us through some of the ideas. I think he wanted to say a couple of pieces on, there was a podcast out with a guy called Habib Abula or something, I forget his name, who was saying basically that that Levy the Qataris or some stuff. I have offered him to come on the podcast to say his thing. I think he's going to come on next week or the week after. So we'll give him his time. But tonight we're going to talk about what that looks like, what that sounds like, and basically try and figure out where the truth lies. Because if you were watching earlier on, we had a 5-hour stream over on Savage channel, and once again, it was just full of debate, full of disagreement, and full of shouting matches between various counterparties that were showing up. As always, guys, love to see you smash the granny out of the like button if you know what's good for you. If you do it once, I won't have to ask you again. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. Drop the comments thick and fast throughout the show. We're here until 9 o'clock even. In an hour and 25 minutes time, we're going to be saying sayonara to Spurs Talk Show, and we're going to be redirecting you over to Football Inc., where we've got to talk about the sad news. We're going to talk about it right now as well. First and foremost, massive tragedy that happened, obviously, last night with Liverpool striker Diogo Jota and his brother passing away. I'll let everyone say their various condolences on their own when I introduce them. But for me personally and from the Spurs Talk Show, shout out to their families, the family and the friends of those two wonderful footballers. And shout out to everyone associated with Liverpool and Wolves and all of football, really. It's a horrible day. Guys, last thing I'll say quickly is, I should have put this before I got to this bit, but if you are interested in the podcast formats, then the links are in the description, Spotify, podcasts, and Apple, all that stuff. James, how you doing, mate, on a sad day? How are you?
Yeah, mate, I'm okay. But yeah, what dreadful news this morning, to be honest. It's one of those things you just kind of look at it and think, oh, God, like, what the hell? You never expect it. And it's one of those things I always tend to look at and think, I try to live my life day by day, to be honest. If you've got that opportunity to do something, you've always wanted to do it. I'm one of those people that goes and does that and then worry about the stuff afterwards. And when you see things like this, it just goes to show that you've got to live your life. And people that are always horrible about each other and bits and pieces in the chat slagging people off, it just goes to show it's way too short to be horrible to people. Yeah. Just sort of, you know, be a bit nicer and enjoy their life while we are here. Because even if it's not that situation, we're not here for a long time regardless. So enjoy it and be nice. And it's sad times for Liverpool, to be honest. Really not nice.
100%. If Lubo was here right now, I'd be giving him a hug through the airwaves, because I know that me and him have a debates, and he's the best. He'd be like the number one person I should give a little hug to. Like you say, James, you know, like if you fall out of people over shenanigans and little irrelevant things, then all these sorts of moments sort of bring it all home to roost, right? Like life is fleeting. We're here for a moment, so enjoy it as best you can. Connor, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, yeah, just to echo what you both said. I mean, obviously, awful news today. Puts life into perspective, doesn't it? And I think as a father of two myself, seeing the photo of him and his wife only a few days ago with their kids, I mean, it's pretty horrendous. So yeah, very, very sad news. Obviously sad about his brother as well, who obviously is not quite in the limelight as much, but just what an awful time for the family. So yeah, very, very sad.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know where else to go with it. It's always I'm not a gifted orator for these things, so I don't know how to sort of transition into the actual content. But rest in peace to the Diogo and his brother. And I hope prayers and thoughts are out to the families of both lads. Lads, we have to talk about Tottenham though. And so I'm going to do my best here to sort of seamlessly transition into it. Let's start with the news about Heung Min's son that's come out today. It was an exclusive from the boot room. Graham Bailey and what's his Johnny? I think his name is the first Johnny B or Shawnee B or something.
Jamie Brown, isn't it?
Jamie Brown, was it? You said Jamie Brown. That's it. Yeah, sorry. Go well done, mate. There's that memory on your head, mate. That's not in mine. Jamie Brown said that apparently exclusive over there that Sonny has open talks with LA FC, Los Angeles FC, and that they have some money that they've freed up a spot by getting rid of Oliver Giroud from their dependent. Whatever the I forget the phrasing, but like basically they get 3 spots in their squad where they can break their wage structure. They have 2 spots available. One of them is now for Sonny if they want to. He looks like he might be interested. They've had talks, discussions. Do you think that? I mean, first and foremost, it probably looks like Sonny wouldn't be able to leave to whoever he wants to go to until after the first game of the tour in Korea. That's a contractual stipulation, unless we wanted to break that sort of term. But it doesn't look like LA would be kind of forcing that issue or need him any earlier than normal. So, do you think that sort of story makes a little bit more sense? Like, I mean, not a lot of players have been going to Saudi this summer. Not a lot of people have picked Saudi when they could have gone. And the other option that keeps getting floated around is Turkey. And Connor, you and I are going to be doing some work on that one because I'm convinced that there's some absolute shenanigans going on with Turkish football at the moment. So does Sonny, if he's not chasing the money, but he wants to have a new experience, would America be the place, especially in the build-up to the World Cup? Does it make a little bit of sense getting that attention out there for LA as well? What's your thoughts, Connor? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I did see this story a day or so ago in a Korean paper that then was from it was doing the rounds on LAFC community Twitter or something before those guys picked it up, and I thought, do you know what? It actually makes a lot of sense, right? I look at Sonny; he doesn't particularly, to me, seem like the type of player to go to Saudi or Turkey, right? And he's not hugely driven by money, I don't think. And so, it does make sense. I think it makes sense from obviously their perspective, LA, given the commercial draw that Son is. So, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're right. All of the news obviously is that he can't go until after the pre-season game unless we want to break their contract, and I don't think we need to necessarily. You just agree it now, right? And then you say that he's going to leave after that, and it gives us an opportunity to give him a bit of a send off, in Korea and stuff as well. So I mentioned this on a podcast the other day. Son for me in my lifetime has been our best signing for sure in terms of longevity, being world class at his peak, being loyal, getting Europa over the line. So he definitely goes with my blessing, but I do think it's right. It's the right time for him to go, and him going to LA would make a lot of sense.
100%, mate. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. If we can get some decent money for it, and welcome, Jay. I'll bring you in a second. I'm come to James next. Love that. Welcome. Kissing the fingers. James, Sonny, mate. Sonny, look, I mean, I'd rather he go to. I'd like to see him out in LA. I'm going out to LA next year, so it'd be nice to be able to catch an LA game and say, Sonny, I was the guy saying that you should have left Tottenham a long time ago. Grab your shirt, please. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I got a lot of stick last season for saying that what I believe was true and he was absolutely rubbish, to be honest. I thought he was awful last season, and I sort of declined the season before. He got good numbers the season before, but I could see he wasn't as sharp. He wasn't making those runs, the getting in behind. So for me, I think he should have gone last season. But the fact that he stayed and won the Europa League it's like a fairy tale, isn't it? It's like if you ever was to have an ending, now is the ending. My one criticism, or not one criticism, I've got lots of criticism of Levy, is the fact that sometimes I feel like he holds on to players for too long, and they go from being a hero to a villain. I.e. Hugo Lloris, everyone turned on Hugo Lloris, he became the so-called villain, the bad guy. Then he was sold. So for me, I think it just makes sense on all fronts. I would prefer him to go somewhere like LA. The money he's still going to get is going to be fantastic just because of who he is and his name. B, I think he'd have a lot better lifestyle out in LA than he would somewhere like Saudi Arabia, Turkey. I think he would be like the local celebrity kind of thing. And I think he links back up with Hugo Lloris, doesn't he? Is Hugo's at LA as well? So that'd be a nice rekindle. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, because they could get over there and go, you see, this is what you should have done 2 years before you did. Because everyone's going to remember me as the legend. Everyone's going to remember you as the bozo who didn't put their gloves, didn't put his gloves back on after half time at Newcastle. 100%. Jay, welcome to the show, my man. How are you, buddy? First and foremost, sad day for football.
I'm sad. I've been sad. I've been sad all day. Like I've been jet. Like this Jota news actually spun me. I think Jota I've always loved Jota as a player. I liked him at Wolves. I liked him at Liverpool. Even like when he scored the winner against us and hit the karma after studying Skippy in the head. I was like, there's something about this guy. But so I was like, no. So yeah, really sad news today. But,
super sad.
Yeah, slowly getting back into football this evening. So,
what's your thoughts on Sonny, mate? No, I mean, obviously not just for him personally, but in terms of if there's movement there and he does go out to USA, does that kind of free up a spot? Does it kind of help Tottenham get some business done as well?
Well, my point is always like, listen, as a Son fanboy, like, I mean, I heard the point about, his numbers. He got the numbers, but he looks less sharp. I'm like, it's kind of like oxymoron a little bit, because it's a bit like he got the numbers because he was still sufficiently sharp. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like that system, it just kind of exposed his, his waning running, his stamina, things like that, being a touchline winger, things. The system really exposed Son in a very, like detailed way, because it's everything that's asking from Son is like what he doesn't really want to give at this stage of his career. Stand on the touchline rather than being in like inside forward, like constantly running. Like, so for me, I think Son's capable. If I was saying, like, if the attack stayed exactly the same and we brought Kudus in, that I'd be okay with that. Like, I wouldn't be upset with that if we went into next season with the forwards we have plus Kudus. Like,
well, you have to make some room, though. Some of them have to go to make space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's time. I'm happy for him to go. Like, I think it's underrated numbers in this Premier League. There's a lot of players that are unproven at the top level. Do you know what I mean? When you've got a player that's capable of doing good numbers, and Frank could still get something out of him. I think it really comes down to, do you really want to see the money for Son so we don't lose him for free? Or do you think he could do something with a different kind of coach?
I just wonder whether or not, like, I'm somewhere in between the 2 points there with regards to the output, because I think that we forced so much down our left-hand side last year to try to make it work with him. I think that we were so imbalanced that we weren't going down the right-hand side. Brennan Johnson became a backdoor specialist. What's that?
Ferg said he misses the bricks. I just said I was mixing it up.
He's become a backdoor specialist, yeah?
Yeah, backdoor specialist. He's the Bonnie Blue of football. I feel like, I don't know whether if you bring in a right winger, like if Kudus comes in and starts and does what a right winger is supposed to do, and then Tottenham, well, there's two elements, right? If one of you thinking about under the Angeball system, which is irrelevant anyway, but if you did have more balance down the right, are you going to see the same sort of levels of outputs of people like Brennan Johnson if he was requested or required to do more than he was than just be at the back door? I don't think you would. And I think if you were doing it more down the right and the same model was requiring Sonny to do what Brennan Johnson did, I'm not sure that would have suited him either way. So I think that both wingers, when they were playing, were the beneficiaries of a lopsided system.
But that's the issue, that Son and Brennan, you could argue, are both the output forward. Do you know what I mean? So when you play with two output forwards, who's the creative forward? So
no, exactly. Yeah.
So like either of them. So if Brennan switches over to the left wing next season and he's playing left wing and Kudus is playing right wing, that would work. Because Brennan's going to do the same thing he was doing on the right. He's just going to get on the end of things. And you're going to have someone in Kudus who's going to be more creative. So to me, like Kudus coming in, I can see Brennan going left wing and being a starter left wing.
But isn't that the exact reason everyone's been slamming Daniel Levy for keeping players too long and not investing into the squad and improving? But now I am seeing a lot of people say, well, he could still do a job, or he could still be part of the squad, or, you know, for me, you can't have your cake and eat it. You got to make up your mind. You either want to stick with the old players that potentially could do a job, if not they can't, or you move on and move forward. You can't sort of say, well, I think there might be something in there. Frank might be able to get something out of him. And then when he doesn't, the first thing that people are going to do is go, well, Daniel Levy hasn't backed out Frank, and we've got the same team as last season, no?
When you say that, are you saying what? Like, obviously, Brennan. Are you saying that with regards Brennan switching over to the left, as in buy another left winger?
I'm saying both of them. I don't think Son or Brennan Johnson's good enough to take us into the top half or top six, whatever we're doing. And if we did keep both Son or Brennan Johnson, the first thing people are going to do is bash Daniel Levy for not improving.
Me personally, I'm a Brennan Johnson fan. I don't. I'm an output guy. So output is the hardest thing to do in football. So when you have a guy that's doing output, I'm like, the rest of it will come. You know, I always think,
the input though.
Yeah, within reason, yeah, because it's all good saying the output counts, but I reckon he made more mistakes leading to goals than he scored goals last season, or left Porro 1-on-1 more times than he did when he could have tracked.
But my point is that, like, if you look at what Brennan's output was, you can argue all about, you know, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're going to think it's stupid. So what you're asking Brennan to do, considering what he's good at, is manager's fault. Like, yes, the player is not doing what we would expect a winger of a certain skill set to do, but it's the manager's fault for bringing him in for 50 million and then asking him to play that way. Do you see what I mean? I'm not blaming the player. I'm blaming the manager. So therefore, from a stylistic point of view, I know Brennan Johnson can score goals. Now, can we coach more skill out of him? That's what we're bringing people like Thomas Frank in. And from a team setup point of view, can you rely on him less in build-up and just have him finishing chances and things like that? Like, I'd like to know, like, looking at Brentford, how much was Visa involved in build-up? How much is Mbeumo involved in build-up? How much is Sade involved in build-up? So you're capable of building the team and having the team attack in certain ways, which can highlight players like Maddison, Kudus if we get him, you know, players that are creative, Porro, and then, you know, allow other players to do what they're good at as well, rather than asking players to flip it. Do you know what I mean? Like asking players like Brennan to dribble more.
Yeah, I see what point and what angle you're coming from, but at the same time, you're not asking too much when you're asking for somebody to track back and put a bit of effort in and not gather around like a show pony. You're not asking too much when you're asking your winger to beat his man. I didn't see him beat his man once. So what you're saying is we're going to keep him just for the toe pokes at the back post. When you play the likes of PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid in the Champions League, you're having 10 men on the pitch because potentially he could score a back post tap in. You could get beat. You can't afford to have that in today's day and age.
No, what I'm saying is that, like, I believe the player is capable of being coached to a very high level. And based on what I've seen the player give us already. Like, literally, based off what I've watched the player do. You can say he's not this and that, but I'm saying, okay, this is his output from goal. The season before, he was missing a lot of chances, wasn't he? Like, in his first season, if you look at his expected goals, he missed a lot of chances. Last season, he scored chances. His positioning was better. His finishing was a little better. So there was an improvement there. So the player is capable of improving his game. Now we've brought Frank in his... Pardon?
Does he work hard enough? Does him or Sonny work hard enough?
Potentially no. But then obviously it's on the manager to work out why and for him to not play if he's not working hard enough. And that's what some players, if you're too comfortable, you've got Kudus now. You've got Odegaard, Tell. Maybe we buy another winger if Son goes. So now your place is under threat. Maybe he felt a little bit relaxed last season with Odegaard being injured and, you know, Maddison being injured. You know, his place wasn't as, you know, threatened. You know, he had runs of good form. If you remember when he was scoring every game in a row and the performances in those games were pretty good, aside from just the goals. I think there's a player there, you know, and I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean, my view on it, look, I don't think Johnson's good enough personally. But in Jay's defence, the one point I would make is, you know, made this point a lot, Sean, when we've spoke about all of the wingers / inside forwards we have. Most of them were played as outline, you know, touchline wingers in Angie's system, even though, and completely misprofiled, even though they're inside forwards. Johnson's an example of that, right? He is not a touchline winger. He can't beat his man. He's not going to get round the back and put a cross in. He's an inside forward. Sonny is the same, right? Sonny was being played out of position in my view. So, you know, I think that would make a difference. I still think with Son, I think it's you know, I really don't want to see Son tarnish his legacy by having that Lloris style final season where he just continued to decline. I'd rather he leave on a high. I think that to James's point, we've got to get ruthless with this stuff if we're gonna, you know, really kick on. And you know, if I look at who I think is probably the best run football club in the country is Liverpool, right? And Liverpool typically move players on at the right point. Mane's the prime example, right? You look at Mane's sort of last season at Liverpool and then how he fell off a cliff at Bayern Munich. So look, I think he has to go. I think with Brennan Johnson, I would keep him just because I think, you know, you might as well keep him as a squad option, but hopefully we're bringing Kudus who would replace him on the right in the starting 11 for me.
So where if Kudus is starting on the right, because I mentioned this in one of the videos I did this morning, right? You know, I've got to keep the same energy. I always try to be consistent. And I did say that signing Eze is, for me, like, obviously a great player. He certainly improves us in every position he wants to come in at, but I don't think he necessarily solves as big of a hole as someone like a Kudus does. But the reason I said it's a bit problematic in the future is if you have three players in Decky, Maddison, and Kudus all that are probably better in the 10, then how are you going to keep them all happy when they're all fit? Now, obviously, keeping everyone fit is not a problem at Tottenham because there's always injuries, but yeah, that is a potential sort of roadblock. And I would make the same argument, though, with Kudus on the right. If Johnson is more of a right winger, I know he can play on the left, but was he shoehorned on the right because we had more competition on the left last season? And that was the way that the direction of travel for our play was? Or is he more of a right winger? And if so, how do you keep Kudus, how do you keep, at this stage, Kudus, Johnson and Odebear all happy? Because you've got to give Odebear minutes. Right? You have to get him some minutes. He hasn't had a chance to prove himself one way or the other thus far. So I wonder where it is that you're going to squeeze those three in. Also, another winger if we bring one in, even if you do let go of Sonny. And this is assuming that Solomon goes out the door as well, and Matisse Tell's got to get minutes. So like, it's still going to be like a problem to squeeze everybody in and keep them happy in a world where everyone's fit. No.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of games. There's a lot of games, right? You know, given Champions League and the cup runs, you know, I think the problem is we've signed a lot of wingers / forwards that are not quite at the standard they need to be, right? And there's only so much moving on and upgrading you can do in one window. And, you know, the club is going to make the decision to give some time who maybe we would all discuss, are they really ever going to be good enough? I'm not so certain. So, you know, I think Solomon's got to go, Sean. We've spoke about this loads, and I know Johnny and Lubo disagree, but for me, Solomon's got to go because we've got so much depth in that position. We don't need another bang average winger, whatever, you know, and you know, you can cash in on him for decent money, which is pure profit. It's just a no-brainer. As I say, for me, Sonny's got to go because it's just the right time. The club has obviously already made the decision to sign Tell. We can debate whether that was the right decision or not. I see a bits in Tell, but I know others don't. But yeah, look, I mean, the rest, Kudus is better than all of those other ones you mentioned, in my view. I think he will be better than all of them. So, you know, I would given the amount of games we've got, I'd give them a chance this season, the likes of Odegaard and Johnson. But then, you know, perhaps you look at that next summer as well.
See, for me, I think there's a couple of things to take from this. Is one, I think that Brennan Johnson makes everybody else around him worse. I think Dominic. I'm being serious. I think Dominic Solanke is good in the air, good at like box in the box. We saw him score 20 goals for Bournemouth, whatever it was, and now we've got a winger that we're saying can't beat his man, can't cross a ball, can't open up the space. Well, that doesn't make sense. We got a guy in Johnson who doesn't get back and help Porro, so it makes Porro weaker. So for me, and this is no dig at anyone, no dig at Jay or anybody, but for me, I think Spurs fans kind of do this thing where they say, oh, he could be good, or he could do a job, or we could coach him. And then at the end of the season, everything turns back on Daniel Levy, goes, well, why didn't we replace him? Why haven't we got better? For me, you need to act, if you want to act like a big club, you need to act like a big club. If you don't, then stop complaining. You can't have players going into games in 10 men. We are going to be playing in the Champions League this season. You can't be having players like Brennan Johnson if you want to be, A, getting into the top 6 or 7 in the Premier League, and B, qualifying for the Champions League and going far in that competition. God forbid Kudus signs and gets injured. Are you comfortable with someone like Brennan Johnson going into that role? I'm not.
Well, I think, first of all, I don't really take offense if people give structured arguments back. You know, it's opinions.
Yeah, cool.
It's all fair. I'm gonna say something back to you. I'm gonna say you do
I
the
didn't
thing.
take offense, so.
I know exactly. So you do the thing that Spurs fans do, which is when you downplay our specific players and elevate players that play for oppositions because you don't look at them with the same lens. You're not as critical of those players when you're watching those players. Yeah, Brennan Johnson had a better season than 80. He had a better season than Kudus last season. Yeah, whether people like it or not, he had a better season. Now, we all want Kudus.
Most players had a better season than Kudus last season.
It shows that you're willing to give a pass to players when you like them. You're willing to give, concessions to a player if you like him. Brennan Johnson, in every attribute, had a better season than Kudus last season. But the fan base says, Kudus, come. We know we can get more out of you. We know we can be better. We know we can do that. So why do they not give the same grace to Brennan Johnson with Thomas Frank? Why are you not giving the same grace to Brennan, saying, hey, you know what? You got over 20 goals last season, and we don't think the guy that was there. If you have an experiment, you can't change everything because everything's a variable. So if you change the manager, but the players remain the same, what does that do to the overall form of the players? We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. So what I'm saying to you is, for all the players that we say are better than Brennan, this guy's rubbish, this guy's this, all of the things that you say is wrong with the player, fair, I get it. But you say, aside from doing that thing that it's the hardest thing to do, put the ball back in the back of the net, he's crap. Take that away from him when you're rating the player. It's disingenuous, it's unfair. It's unfair rating the player to
it's a fair pushback, James, to be fair,
mate. That's fair. Well, what I would say is I don't look for other players. For me, if you ask me what I thought of Kudus, and I said it on Savage show, his dribbling ability is unreal, and his attacking threat is unreal. But what I also said is I picked him apart as well and said I think he gave away the ball the most times in the league last season. I think it was a stat like that. Don't quote me on what it was. But for me personally, as a winger, he made the most successful dribbles. He created the most chances from right wing, there was loads basically going on. But there was also a few ones that were like what you're saying. He didn't get a lot of assists, but that's not always from his downfall. It can be based around the team. Like I said, for me, if you have Dominic Solanke, you have to have someone getting the balls in the box. Otherwise, again, you're a man down. And I'm not looking through it as the eyes of, oh yeah, like Kudus is amazing, everyone else is crap. But I'll make my opinion on what I see personally. I don't want Brennan Johnson scoring 15 goals a season or whatever it is and doing nothing else. I think that he's taking the goals away from somebody like Dominic Solanke. And I also think if you had somebody that was constantly driving with the ball, it would open up space for somebody like James Maddison. So he would come into the game a bit more because he'd have more space to work with. I don't necessarily think that's all on him. I do think some of that is to blame with Ange as well. So I'm not saying that's all on Brennan Johnson. But for me, I do think stats sometimes are a bit deceiving. Yeah. And we can go, oh, look at Brennan Johnson's numbers because that's the hardest thing to do. But then that's like saying Tell is one of the worst wingers in the league because of his stats are crap. Solanke didn't score any goals, so he's crap.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is cast your mind back to when we first signed Brennan Johnson. Yeah? Think about how he was playing. Yeah? I remember he started the game against Arsenal on the left. Yeah? I think. Played left wing in that game. played well, had a good game. I remember seeing him come on against Crystal Palace where we scored that amazing goal. And this guy was all flick, one touch, run with the ball, this and that. He has talent. There is talent in this player. So I get where people are coming from.
Talent is superseded by hard work. Well, I'll agree with James is I don't disagree with you. I think it's a really interesting point about the experiment thing and the invariables versus variables. If you change too many variables, then you never really get a clear sample size on the next experiment or the next version or the iteration because you don't know what it was that changed that was responsible for the change, right? 100%. But that's an experiment in a science lab. In an experiment on a football pitch, you can't. Like by that argument, then you shouldn't change anyone in the team, and you should just let Thomas Frank work with the same squad and see how he gets on, just to see how big of a difference the manager makes.
And the Spurs fans would revolt. But my point on this, just as you're going, is like Johnson was very available last season, bar the injury, yeah, even throughout everything. I'm not gonna listen. I don't want to make excuses for the
unfortunately.
Yeah, you're gonna say unfortunately. But I'm gonna say, how fit was this player truly through some parts of the season? You know, when you're seeing this player not pressing and stuff, yeah, definitely could be down to laziness and this and that. Could it also be down to the player hasn't got it in him to press for 90 minutes with whatever? Like I hear what people are saying, and the laziness to me, I get it. But there was times last season that I thought Porro was looking lazy, and there was times that it could have been fitness, could have been tactics, could be the player. I do agree that there were spells last season that Johnson really didn't look like out of possession, things like that. It didn't look like he was up for it. But we'll say that players, when you have a plan, it's a lot easier to follow a detailed plan than it is to just kind of a cappella it. Do you know what I mean? And I think some of these players, and it's the thing I've said the whole time, some of these young players, you can't put them out there and expect them to figure it out because they don't have the match knowledge. They don't have the experience of going through these moments to know what to do. And I think some of these players will benefit a lot from having detailed tactical instructions, including the more polarizing players. You know, when you have a wide range of opinion on Brennan, like I'm amazed that his goals don't carry more weight. Like his goals are disregarded for, you know. I'm like, but if it was that easy, why did none of our other players score goals like that?
So, I mean, I think on Johnson, I think the reason why, you know, it's, as I say, I don't want him to start because I don't think he does enough to impact the game more generally. And sometimes, you know, I know the stats, and look, no one loves a spreadsheet more than me, as Sean knows, but football's not played on spreadsheets, right? And sometimes the sum of the parts can be better than, you know, the individual contribution. So, you know, that's my argument. But that being said, I think what Johnson suits a lot better is a transition style team and a team that's going to play on the counter attack. And we know with Frank, there's going to be certain games where Frank is going to implement that type of system rather than Ange, who just always wanted to play with the same philosophy until he completely forgot about his philosophy in Europa. And so, you know, there's games where Kudus is a much better option where you're playing against a low block and you need someone to beat a couple of players and break down a team. And then there's going to be games actually where Johnson will be quite a good fit because we're going to try and hit a team on the counter and play on the transition a bit more. So that's why I think they give you a bit of a different option actually, and it's worth keeping both as you two.
Right. How many wingers? How many wingers do we need next season? Or let me rephrase. How many forwards do we need for a front three or for a back three system that might have two up the top or three up the top if you include the 10 as well? So 2 wingers, a 10, and a striker or 2 mixed in. How many players do we need versus how many players have we got? Because we have to work out at some point, if we like Johnson, if we think that Sonny can do the same thing in an inside forward role that he can't do as a wide man. People are asking for Manor Solomon to come back. Odebear's got to fit in. Tell's got to fit in. Decky, Maddison, Kudus, Johnson, Johnson, and then on top of that, you've still got Richalison and Solanke, and God knows how many kids to think about. So, where's the bottom of the pecking order? Who goes in this list?
So, look, for me, I think you need, you know, ideally, you're normally looking at 2 in each position, aren't you? Right, generally. So, in my argument. So you'd have Kudus and Johnson as your options on the right. Maddison and Kulusevski can play in the sort of 10 / Kulu could obviously play out wide if you also needed him to. On the left, you've got Tell. I would still think we probably need another attacking option out on the left if Son goes. I would sell Richarlison, and I'd sell Solomon. So you've got sort of Odegaard as that floating one that can sort of fill all of the positions, and then 2 in every other position there.
Yeah,
I'll be
for
honest,
me,
I didn't hear a word of that, mate. So I had a phone
No, I
quite
saw you was
so-
recording, but the ones to go for me, the ones to go for me basically are Solomon needs to go, Son needs to go, Richarlison needs to go as definites. Micky Moore should probably go out on loan.
Yeah,
because I don't think he's
so
physically.
you got
ready.
so you've still got space for Johnson and Odegaard in that squad then to play, mix them in somehow. Yeah, fair enough. James,
for me,
What say
the only way I keep Brennan Johnson is if Richarlison's sold and Brennan Johnson comes in as a striker. That's the only way I think you can get away with him just scoring the goals. I think as a winger, for me personally, he's not a winger. He can't play wide. The bare minimum I expect from our wingers is to be able to beat your man and deliver a ball for your striker that's there to score goals. So if you was to get somebody like a Kudus, and then on the other side, I'm just throwing out names because they're who we've been linked with. I don't expect us to get them. But if, say, for example, Eze and Kudus, you know, both of those are going to create chances, loads and loads of chances. So therefore, you could then, in my opinion, afford to have Brennan Johnson up front, either with Solanke or on his own, because he's a good finisher. I'll give him that. He is a good finisher. It's just everything else around him. So I would go Solanke, Johnson up top. I would then go Odegaard on the right wing, Tell on the left wing, and then I would buy a right wing and a left wing, and then keep somebody like a Donnelly around who can fit in if need be for a wing space or a cam.
you think Donnelly's ready? Do you Premier League? Yeah.
Well, he's done. No, not really. But I don't think the new league is going to buy more than the 2 or 3 up front. So I think out of all of them, he's shown more to me than the likes of Micky Moore, and so he's actually kind of produced it in A League in England rather than none. So
So is
if
Maddison
I'm
Solomon
guessing,
though, right?
oh no,
Maddison
no.
Solomon's shown it at a higher level than Jamie Donnelly. So if we're doing
That's
it on
fair.
that basis, then I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want to
that's
see
fair.
Maddison Solomon here. So personally,
I just think Donnelly's more well-rounded. Could play cam, could play right, could play left. Whereas I think Solomon's just a left-sided. I may be wrong. Haven't seen him play on the right or through the middle, but he's more of a left winger for me than he is elsewhere.
he's certainly more of an out-and-out winger, though. Like
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
pitching him to be here because I want him out. I don't think he's good enough
I
for
agree.
Tottenham.
Yeah.
But he's probably more of a winger than we have in other areas, right, Jay?
Well, yeah. So I was just. Go, sorry, James. Go.
So sorry, just for end.
No.
He is definitely like more of my kind of winger anyway, personally. That's more of the sort of player I want to see in the wing. Someone that's going to beat their man, deliver, beat their man, get a shot off. That's what I would like. But someone better than him.
Okay.
Sorry, Joe.
No, I think your squad breakdown is fair. It's good. I actually think it depends on how much upheaval one wants to do. I look at it a little tighter because I look at it and first of all I'm like semantics, but Brennan's a forward, not a winger. Like, and when people keep calling him wingers, I'm like, this is what I mean. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're gonna think it's stupid. Like, he's not a winger, but you keep judging him like a winger. He's a forward. Judge him against other forwards in his position, what they're doing. The forwards forwards tend not to be dribbly. Forwards tend to be more get the ball out of your feet and shoot. Look at the top forwards in world football. If you have the ability to dribble and score goals, you're like Ballon d'Or list. Like, look at any of the wingers in world football. They tend to have one or the other. Yeah. And if they have both, you're talking Ballon d'Or top 10. Bring me a player that scores goals and is also a very good dribbler.
So where's the creativity coming from then in the team? If you don't have if you're playing a 4-3-3,
right,
and you don't have if your wingers are essentially inside forwards,
yeah,
and then your creativity is coming through your 10, I guess, by that rationale.
Yeah. So the thing is when you're looking at this team now, I'm like, Brennan's a forward. So if Kudus comes in, he solves a lot of problems. If you look at left-footed right wingers available on the market, he's number one with a bullet. There is not a better player that we can buy to play on the right wing that's left-footed than Kudus. He's number one. Whether or not you love the player, whether or not you think his attributes, he's the best player we can buy, right? So he solves a lot of problems with the team. He creates the opportunity for players like Brennan to be able to play left wing. I argue the club might even just sell Son and leave it as it is. Do you see what I mean? Because when Kulu and Maddison are back, because you can play Kudus in the 10 while those two get fit. And then alternatively, when they're fit, Kudus can move out to the right. You've got Kulusevski, you've got Maddison. On the left, you've got Udogie, you've got Tell, you've got Brennan who can play there as well, and you've got Micky Moore. And then you'd have Richie and Solanke up front, but you'd also have Brennan that could play there too. The club could argue and look at that and say it's enough. Whether or not fans would say, oh my God, we need this, we need that. The club can say, listen, we invested in Udogie last summer. We invested in Tell. Yeah, we think they're going to be top players. They need to play. We've got Micky Moore. Brennan can play out there too. You know, Kulu and Kudus can play on the right wing. Whether fans like it or not, with a limited squad, the club could really, really feasibly say, yeah, we're going to go with this. Yeah, especially as we're looking at it's a first manager season and he's coming into the players on a standing start rather than the fluidity of understanding how they play with his system. So I won't begrudge the club doing that. And I don't want people to say, oh, you know, you're part of the problem, Jay. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm the solution. Now I'm probably part of the problem. But the point would
We're
be
all part of the problem,
like,
mate. We're all part of the problem.
But the point is like showing empathy for a situation doesn't make me part of the problem. It just means that I'm just saying I can see this happening and I won't kill the club for it. Here's the police coming to arrest me for that take. Let
me ask this, guys. Let me ask this, right? So if you could bring in two players right now, let's assume that Kudus is top of the list right now. Even if you don't want him and you want someone else, that's fine. I'll let you go with where you want with it. Would you rather see Tottenham bring in two different types of? And you know, Jay's obviously saying that they're all just forwards, but like within the forward category, would you like to see people that can? Because I wouldn't say Kudus can play in the 9. Right? He might be able to play in the false 9 occasionally, but I don't think he's a striker. Would you like to see Tottenham? I mean, I think, Connor, I'll start with you. You already said you want to see Richalison go. If you want to see Richalison leave the club, which I do, then you can't really allow Tottenham to start the season with just Solanke as the only recognised main number 9 at the Premier League and then shoehorn players in like a Johnson or a Sonny if he stays or whatever that, let's be honest, are not really 9s either. They're at best inside forwards or just general forwards. Would you rather see Tottenham go and get Kudus and a 9, like a striker, like a £60 million striker, or would you rather see her go and get Kudus and a Xavi Simons or a Mikhail Tadzi or an Eze or whoever else, insert another wide guy forward in there? How would you want to see that kind of front line shape up? If you get 2 spots, where do we improve?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, when we discussed the forward position before, my view was always I couldn't see Spurs going big on a striker because of the huge investment they'd made in Solanke last summer. So, from the club's perspective, I think they are certainly going to give Solanke, at least another season of being, the main man. Whether we think he's good enough or not is up for debate, but I think the club is definitely going to do that. Jonathan David was the one I always wanted because to me it was a bit of a no-brainer. He's a free, but not really a free, but he's a free, for all intents and purposes. And obviously he's now gone to Juventus. This was the reason I was an advocate of Eze, because he gave you a bit of versatility. He could play it on the left or could play in the inside when Maddison inevitably gets injured. And then, so before I was always of the view, right, we need someone that can play off the right, but with a bit of versatility, plus maybe an Eze who can play off the left with a bit of versatility. Now it looks like Kudus, and that's where Mbeumo might have been quite a good fit, right? Because Mbeumo could play down the 9, maybe arguably better than a Johnson or a Tell. But now it looks like Kudus. It does change the dynamic a bit, Sean, but I don't know whether there's that many options, right, in terms of someone that can play down the middle or not. Your
There's
other
loads of
argument
out there.
I mean, as in what I think the club are going to pay, right? Given the Solanke argument I just made. So, you know, this is where maybe like a Visser is not a bad option, right? If you're going to get rid of Richarlison and you can get Visser in as just another option down the 9 who's going to cost 20.
I think Richarlison would go
25
to Brentford, do a cash plus money for Richie, or cash plus Richie for Visser.
Wages might be an issue for them, though, mightn't it? That's the only thing with a Richarlison, I suppose. But yeah, look, I think you know, I think we need 2 attacking signings on top of Tell, is my view. I get Jay's point that the club might only decide to do 1. I'd like to see 2, and then obviously, you know,
do you think it's possible that the club promote 1 youngster like a Scarlett or a Donnelly or so as in, like you say, like we need 2, but just 1 of those come from within?
I fucking hope not.
I like Dane Scarlett. I'm not. There's something. He's got that dog in him. He's got something in him.
Mate, you know what, dude? There's a couple of things that would put me on the Levy out bandwagon. One is if we sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free. Right? If that happens,
I was just about to suggest that, Phil.
If that happens, bro, you're going to see the epic meltdown of all meltdowns. I'm not quite as strong about this one, but if Tottenham just say, "Oh, we'll sell Richarlison to fund a 6 or whatever," and then we end up with just Solanke and we give Dane Scarlett a bat, like, because I know what happens.
No. Scarlett would have to be on top of like Richie, Solanke, and Scarlett. I'd be like, okay, like, you know,
Dane Scarlett, the guy's failed miserably at 500 different loans.
Oh, what? Hold on, that's not reading from the Bible of Harry Kane. That we know how this.
Harry Kane succeeded at
no.
Harry Kane succeeded on those loan deals, my man. Come on, Dane Scarlett got sent packing 3 times.
Now, come on, man. Like, come on. Scarlett's he's a decent player. I don't know where his level lands, but like I said, you know, like we're looking at these squads now. The homegrown thing is a thing, especially for Champions League as well. The registration. So maybe there's something there. You know, maybe he sticks around from that. I appreciate people don't think it's very sexy. Do you know what I mean? I understand that it's not as sexy as people might like. You know, but sometimes,
sexy, mate. You're going home with a 3 out of 10, and there's no lipstick on that pig. There's no makeup. You're not even that drunk. You're just going home with a 3 out of 10. What are we doing here?
Listen. Sometimes you're saying lipstick. You're saying lipstick on a pig. No. You're thinking, oh, my wife needs to look like Nicole Scherzinger. No, she doesn't. She can look like a good, solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, Dane Scarlett's not a 7, mate. Dane Scarlett is not a 7 out of 10.
That attack would be like a 7. You got to look at it comparatively. Like, do you know what I mean?
Dane Scarlett's one of those big girls who walks to the front of the queue at the Chick King and gets herself served first. She's got like a membership card, and then because she got served first there, she thinks she can walk to the front of the queue at the nightclub and get in as well because she's got a bit of attitude. Get yourself to the back of the queue, love. You're queuing up like the rest of us. Okay,
like, listen, between you guys have just got to see the bigger picture, right? Like if you were gonna say if you had Solanke, Richarlison, okay, fuck it, Scarlett, right? Those 3 versus the rest of the Premier League attacks, yeah. Strikers, just 9s. Our 9s versus other teams' 9s. Where do you rank it?
Richarlison, Solanke, and Dane Scarlett.
Yeah, against other teams' 9. No, before you answer it, think calmly. Think calmly, because your initial reaction might have it lower than really think about it. You know. Now, how many teams have 2 9s better than Richarlison and Solanke? How many teams?
Well, if we're going by what you were saying earlier, I'd say we're ranked 17th because none of them scored many goals. So 17th, where we finished 17th.
Rich was just injured. Fit Richie. And
you know what? I give it to you, man. You're very good at making up excuses for these players and giving them bypasses.
Hey, these are European champions. You watch your mouth when you talk about them. No,
let's be honest here, right? Brentford have got at the moment. Brentford have got a better forward line.
No. They've got Visa. So they've got Visa as the 9. What are the 9s? I'm not swapping Visa for Solanke, really.
So because our top 3 are better than their 2nd and 3rd rated striker, it means that we've got a complete package.
So we win on the aggregate. Thank you. Moving on. Like, because that's what I'm saying. Like, let's be fair here. Like,
No, I'm sorry, So yeah, let's drop the Scarlet talk because that's mental.
Hey, listen, he's just
I'd make the argument that Fulham have got.
No, listen, it's like when you buy aftershave and they give you some samples in the back. That's Jane Scarlett. He's the free samples. Yeah, we're obviously purchasing something on the other side. That's just a nice to have. Don't even stress that. We're not really judging that in the whole.
So hang on. I don't think you could just judge like the just the nines thing. I think you have to judge Tottenham's forward line.
You do.
Criteria.
I'm not even sure.
Like my criteria.
I don't even know if I know who like the second player who doesn't necessarily start for West Ham is in the nine. Who is West Ham's second nine?
West Ham's second nine.
Well, Kudus played there. Kudus played there a lot last season.
I don't know what we're doing here. What are we doing?
Kudus played there a lot last season.
Like, would you swap Jackson and João Pedro for Richalison and Solanke?
Oh my goodness! Right, oh my goodness!
Now, so I think they win that one.
Right.
No, hold on.
Can you edit that bit out, Sean? Edit that bit out and save this guy.
Hold on, I think that's close. I don't think that's.
You think that's close?
Jackson and Kunku or João Pedro over Richarlison and Solanke.
Come on, what's Nkunku done in his 2 years in the Premier League for you to be like?
Or Delap.
Liam Delap or Jackson.
Well, so you're saying you Delap, João Pedro, and
Nicholas Jackson is far better than Solanke, Richarlison, and Dane Scarr.
Oh no, it's far. It's not far better. It's not far better.
What are we doing here, bro?
What
are we doing?
Jay, mate, you're cooking yourself, bro. We ain't even
you guys are overrating these
You were doing so
players.
well. You were doing
so
well.
We're overrating players. Dane Scarlett should stay, and we're overrating.
Bro, I told you. Nah.
How's it better than United?
You're saying that you want free perfume to play up front.
Hold on. How many goals did Pedro even score last season without penalties? How many goals? I'm sure he got less than Solanke in a team.
I think he got 13 goals last season. I don't know how many.
There's not a chance that brother got 13 goals in the league last season. No chance.
Pedro.
No chance.
Delap got more.
I'm speaking with confidence, with no clarity as to what his stats actually were. So this could reflect badly.
João Pedro last season scored
in the league.
Hang on. Oh, he's got 22 in 89 in the league in his time. So he's a 1 in 4 guy.
1 in 4. Oh yeah, amazing.
Isn't Richarlison a 1 in 4 guy?
Hey, listen. Richarlison has fitness issues. João Pedro just has
anger
issues,
not bad,
and penalty issues. Be fair.
Hang on, where can I find his stats? Let me get this up here.
Yeah.
So for me,
whilst you're looking it up, I think Jay's point has some validity. If Richarlison was always fit, in that Solanke and then Richarlison
10 goals in the Premier League, João Pedro,
better than some other teams in the aggregate. Unfortunately, football's not played in the aggregate because only one of them plays, obviously, in that position. But yeah, I mean, Chelsea do have a better set of nines than us. There will be other teams that don't in the aggregate, but.
Okay, all right. So you're saying Delap's better than Solanke?
Yes.
He'll end up being better than Solanke.
Come on, man. Like, because what Delap just did for Ipswich, when we bought Solanke from Bournemouth, I bet you said, this guy's trash.
Mate, I've had a £20 bet on him being top goal scorer next year, Golden Boot.
Nah, come on, man. What's Delap done to be
like? That 20 quid with your Sean as well, if you want. You're offering it out.
Guys, be fair, man. Delap's not even better than Richarlison, you know.
Listen, Delap's going to surprise a lot of people, mate.
Come on, guys.
Delap's going to surprise a lot of people. I got 70. I think it was 7. I can't remember what the odds were, but it was healthy odds. But he's going to do really, really, really good bits next year.
He's a good player, but so is Solanke and Richarlison. They're all good
players.
Richarlison's not a good player. Why are we good in the air? That's about it.
If our players are this good, like you're making them out, why did we finish 17th? Why are we? They're all fantastic. We should keep them all.
That's why we've got it. That's why we've got to test the data. We don't know why. Listen, if we gave up on the league, like Ange said, did you think Ange is a good manager?
No.
Okay, cool. So there you go. Straight away, you've got the players were managed by somebody that I don't think was a good manager. Okay, so. How much of the blame are you going to attribute to the manager for what the players delivered last season?
But there has to be context in stuff like that. So for me, for example, Archie Gray comes into the question. Do I think Archie Gray's a good player? I have no idea. And a lot of blame went on to Ange Postecoglou for that.
He's not a good player yet, that's for sure.
For me, when he did play, people say, oh, they threw him into the deep end against Liverpool. But he was still misplacing 3-yard passes. That's got nothing to do with Liverpool. It's got nothing to do with who he's playing. It's the basics of football. You can't keep going, but the manager, well, Johnson still scored loads of goals. Maddison still put up the numbers. So how can we kind of say, oh, but yeah, he was not very good, or this wasn't very good, but the other guys were okay. So so what we're saying is Brennan Johnson is rubbish and got the best out of him in the formation, or that doesn't work for your argument in the respect of the other guys.
It depends on how you position the players. Anyway, if anything, it makes me think that Brennan Johnson could be a superstar. And if anything, it supports my view that Brennan Johnson under another manager could be a superstar. If anything, and the point you're making is fair and it has a lot of validity. But you have to look at it from the point of view of, if you think our back five are good players, yeah. If you think Solanke underperformed last season, if you think Maddison had a decent season but was a bit up and down, Kulusevski, I believe we have good players. I believe we have much better players than fans think. You don't win.
How many points can Thomas? Even if there's, I'm not sure if I asked you this last time you were on, Jay. How many points is Thomas Frank's organisation, training, coaching, discipline, structure worth if the squad stayed the same? How many more points? We've got 38 underhand this season. What can we get if everything was the same as it is now? How many more points?
I believe this. Like he could have got maybe 25 points more out of this squad.
Okay.
That many.
So that's a massive stretch in my opinion. But then we need an extra 6 points to finish fourth.
Well, what you have to. Okay, what I'm going to say to you guys is, look at it like this: Spurs lost so many games last season by 1 goal. Okay, Thomas Frank is a marginal gains merchant. Yeah. Like I'm talking throw-ins, set pieces, all of this sort of stuff. Look at the games we lost by 1 goal and think about a coach that has marginal gains. Think about a coach that is going to give you more of a tactical setup defensive. I'm really building a rod for my own back here, aren't I? Think about a coach that's going to set a team up in a way that knows. You talk about Archie Gray. You want to know why he did that, in my personal opinion? Because he didn't know where his teammates were meant to be. That comes down to coaching, positioning.
No, you're making excuses again.
Say the player panicked. I saw Archie Gray play for Leeds in central midfield against Chelsea and run the game. Yeah,
it's one game. So we saw it again. Yeah,
we saw that. Yeah, because he knew that team knew what it was doing. Yeah.
So why did we sell Ollie Skip? Because he ran the game against AC Milan away, no?
Okay, what I'm not saying. First of all, by the way, Archie Gray is 18 years old. Yeah, playing against absolute.
That's another excuse. Listen, you are the king of excuses. Just answer the question.
It's context. The same way that you said context before. It's waffling when it's something you don't like. It's context when it's something you do like. That's my point to you. I'm offering context to the player's performance. You asked me why. I'm giving you rationale as to why. You can't then come back to me and say, why are you saying why?
Hang on, Rain Man, how am I taking strays? I've barely said a word, bro. I'm not getting. I'm just chiming in with questions. I'm not getting stuck into this one. Connor, let me bring you in. Let me bring you in here. Who's making the most sense? Is it Jay or James? Right? Because I think that the truth is in the middle usually. Right? Like yes, the club, the squad of players that we do have are better than what we put on last season. But if we're talking about within 2-3 years being part of a Champions League winning or potentially Champions League winning, this is what Daniel Levy said, right? Premier League ambitions, Champions League ambitions. Now we can't expect that in one summer or one season. But do you think that the kind of margins guy is worth 25 more points in and of himself? 30 points, I think Jay said. You said 25 points, didn't you? Jay said 25 points. Do you think it's worth 25 points in and of itself? Is our squad not as good not as bad as some people think?
Yeah, I'm going to be the peacemaker here because the truth is definitely in the middle. I don't think it's quite as many points as Jay just said, but I do think we definitely don't have the 4th worst squad in the league, right? So I think we get top 8 just by having a proper manager with proper structure. and everything else. But I think so. So Jay's definitely making some good points around the squad. I do think a lot of the reason the squad looks so bad is because they've been misprofiled. You've got Porro and Udogie inverted into the 10 position, and number 6 left in acres of space. You've got Maddison picking up the ball too deep. You've got wingers being played as touchline wingers when they're actually inside forwards, etc., etc., etc. Right. So I think all of those players suddenly look better when they're coached in the right way. So I think we'll get top 8 next season is my view. Now, where James is right though is if your ambition is really to kick on and compete at the very top, and to try and break into the top 5, say, to get Champions League football, some of these players just aren't good enough, in my view. Some are, but some aren't. And I think Jay's obviously an eternal optimist, which I like, but I think even he could admit that those types of players are going to struggle to really compete at the very top, but they're definitely better than how we view them now.
So from my point of view, I didn't even answer the question as in how many points do we think we could get. I'm actually more than 20 points. I think Frank could get 21 plus, which is what, eight wins. We lost 22 games. Let's be real. We lost 22 games, so it's not like 8 wins. 8 wins is still losing 14 games this season, or there or thereabouts. So let's be real. I expect him to be doing that also, because if anything less than that, more than 14, 15 losses, that's not good enough. So I actually do think our squad is much better than 17th. I said at the beginning of the season, I think we're a top 8, top 7 club with the players that we have with a good formation. But there has to be sort of like you're saying, context. You can't say, well, Brennan Johnson was being forced to play out of his position on the wide, but yet Archie Gray's allowed because he didn't know where his players was, and making excuses for one but not the other. It has to be consistent. So if everything was to do with Ange, then they're all bad because of Ange, or they're all good. I saw Archie Gray get run past time and time again at right back. Okay, he's not a right back. I then saw him go into midfield, and it wasn't like I see him make 40-yard passes or 4-yard passes or 5, 8, 10-yard passes. It's the basic stuff that he was doing, letting his man run past him, watching people around him. The ability to make a pass back or to pass out wide. I'm sorry, these are things that, people say, he's 18. He's been playing football since he was 6 or 7. Regardless if they're men or not, you should be able to pass the ball 5, 6, 10 yards. So I understand your point, and I agree. Ange's tactics and philosophy were just, none of it made sense to me at all. And I saw that. I didn't really see it until I went and watched it live at Ipswich at home. That was the moment for me. I said, right, that's it, game's over, and just to go. But we can't be making excuses for basics. Some of these players have to take responsibility for themselves, regardless if they're 18, because the next thing that we will flip-flop on and say is, Berghvall, for me, was our player of the season. So what's the difference between him and an Archie Gray? He played under the same manager, played in the same position, didn't give the ball away every time he touched the ball. Was that because of Ange worked well with him, or because Ange just, well, mate, I'm sorry, you have to be fair on the full...
100%. And then on the principle of fairness, James, when we came into the season, last summer, were you happy with the transfer window?
Me personally, who come in last season? It was
Bear, Solanke, Berghvall.
No, I wasn't. No,
okay,
I thought it was a good start, but no, I wasn't.
Perfect. So in the interest of being,
you said exactly what I want to hear. Now I'm going to bury you.
I mean, it's like no, because this is in the interest of being fair is that. So then you come into the season and the players aren't. You yourself know that what we did in the transfer window was not sufficient. So now when we're rating the team, plus the injuries, we're coming. You have to allow yourself to remember how you felt at the beginning when you saw what we did from a business point of view. And now we're saying, okay, this isn't good enough. The players aren't good enough. Yada yada. But the benefit now is that a lot of these players have a year of experience. So a lot of these players are now better a year later than they were at this starting point before. So I'm going to say, okay, there's going to be a certain level of improvement in the player. But when you're looking and you want to rate these players, you are fair to say, okay, Archie Gray was not good enough last season. in his position. Yeah, like Berghvall, he basically got, you know, the best of a bad bunch trophy because his expectations were lower than the rest of the team. So therefore, it's easy to give Berghvall Player of the Season because we didn't expect that much of you starting the season, and you did pretty well. You did well, kid. So here you go. Right?
I didn't expect nothing from Gray either. So why can we choose one over the other?
Oh, because Archie, the 18-year-old who surpassed expectations versus the 18-year-old who didn't. Do you know what I mean? They're both 18-year-old babies.
One showed ability and one didn't.
No,
that's just facts.
I'm saying to you is that what were you expecting from an 18-year-old playing out of? Do you think that an 18-year-old midfielder should be a better centre back than any centre back in the world's best league?
No, but I didn't say.
So your expectation coming in is he's the worst centre back in the league, right? So if he then performs like the worst centre back in the league, why are you surprised?
No, it's not about being surprised. It's about accepting it. That's not acceptable for me. That may be acceptable for you. For me, it's not. Like I said earlier, you're making out like, you know, he never played right back, or which he played more right back for Leeds than he did centre mid. By the way, just so you know that he got spun more times at right back than I've ever seen anybody get spun in my life, and it doesn't break down the basics of the passing ability. Mm-hmm. I see him do one or two moments where he drove a 40, 50-yard ball, and I thought, "God, there's a good player there. That's a good ball." But that doesn't make up for all the bad that he did. You know, there's one thing saying, you know, he did this, but you have to look at the whole picture. In this, you can't make all these excuses and judge one man by one brush and another man by another brush. You have to be fair.
I think the problem for Gray a little bit is obviously because of the price tag, right? And you know,
but I haven't brought that up. I've brought up the ability to make passes, the positioning. That's what I've only spoke about price one.
Fans naturally are going to be more critical than because of the price tag, right? And also demanded big wages, Gray as well, right? It wasn't even. It was a 40 million plus 75 grand a week, right? So I think that's the context to and then obviously Berghvall has then done exceptionally better, to your point, James, and he only cost 8 mil and was on 15 grand a week or whatever. So, but the counter to all of that and why you do have to give Gray a bit of time is players do develop differently, right? And particularly at that such a young age. I mean, what's been really good for me with Berghvall, I've seen that he's physically bulked up this year, right? I think he's done a lot of work. You can tell in the gym. I remember his first appearance in the Europa, or one of his first appearances in Europa. I thought, God, this guy isn't ready, Berghvall. I thought he was miles off it, right? I thought we need to loan him out. It's a massive step up from the Swedish league to the Prem, but obviously he, to Jay's point, surpassed expectations, didn't he? And let's see with Gray right now, James. I think it's a lot of money for Gray. It doesn't look a shrewd investment right now, but he's only 18. He's been asked to play.
If the club could get their money back on him, if the club could like reverse that trade, would they do it?
Absolutely. £40 million. For me, £40 million. You buy.
It was 30 plus
Roden.
Joe Roden.
Yeah, but either way, we kind of lost out the equivalent because we could have sold Joe Roden elsewhere for 10 or whatever, you know. So for me,
absolutely. Not for you, but it would. I know your opinion on Archie Gray, but do you think if the club could turn back time, would they? Do you think they basically regret paying that much money? Do you think they're sitting there going, "Fuck, no"?
I think that they should. I think they should be because if you look at that sort of money, even if you say 30 million, for me, 30 million buys you Douglas Luiz or Archie Gray. If you're picking Archie Gray over those two, then I'm sorry, you need to give your head a wobble.
Yeah, but you're right in terms of if it had been another team, right? You're right. You know, excuses for your own team. Like obviously, I'm a fan of Tottenham Hotspur first. I'm a critic second. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm gonna do it in that order. And the point you're making is fair. It's like I said at the time, Højbjerg is obviously better right now than Archie Gray, but fans will fan. And fans will be like, well, do you remember? Fans were trying to rationalize Richalison being a better fit for Andrew's system when we were selling Kane. Do you know, fans will do anything. Do you know what I mean? So I don't mind that. But I'll look at it and I'll say, right, well, Archie Gray the money you spend on Archie Gray, it's like you're investing in the vision of who he's going to be. You're investing in his profile. You're investing in and you're trusting your scouts. You're saying, listen, you guys are paid big money because we're not able to compete with the very best players at the very best teams right now. Whether you want to blame Levy for that, whether you want to blame the club, whatever, we can't. So what we have to do is we have to find the very best, the very best players in that profile. And the club have said, Archie Gray. And watching the under-21 championship was actually quite sobering for me because I was even watching things like, who are the players of the tournament? If you look at the best players I saw in that tournament, Elliot, Anderson, Waltmed, all of those players were like 22. Yeah, they were all 22. The best players in the under-21 tournament is 22, which isn't a problem in itself. But to focus on the point is they're 22. Ethan and Wanyeri on the bench, playing great for Arsenal. But when he's up against players who are 4 years older than him, playing the same tournament, he was being left on the bench. Then you look at the player and you say, hey, you're up against 25, 26, 30-year-olds, all this. And it really made me think, wow.
And when he played in the six, to be fair to him, when he was shoehorned into that six towards the end of the season, the games that he had to face, Liverpool was his sixth debut away against like the three biggest monsters in the biggest baddest midfield in the game, maybe outside of Villa or Newcastle in terms of physical stature. But like he could take a leaf out of Archie Gray's book, right? Out of Berghvall's book. Get under the wing of someone and get in the gym every day for a couple of hours. And a lot of those problems go away. But if he wants to remain slight of frame, he's going to, he does look a little bit like he's going to get sort of knocked over by a strong gust of wind, which brings me to the sort of penultimate kind of question for you guys. I know this conversation has been a fantastic debate, by the way, but I do want to ask this question because we're sort of talking about the six right now in Archie Gray, talking a bit about Lucas Berghvall. We talked a lot about the forward line. If we're trying to capture that 31-point differential, and by the way, Reece Jagger put in a brilliant point that it's far more easy to get to gain 25 points from being on 38 than it is to get 25 points from being on 60 or whatever, right? So it shouldn't be that difficult to be able to climb the ladder in that regard. But one of the areas that we need to improve on in order to do that is to get that monster six in. I put a poll out asking, who is what's the most important next signing to help us get that 31 points differential, and it's 20% say winger, 5% say a defender to replace Romero, 11% say a striker, 65% still think it's a six, right? And there's just really no links, no noise, nothing really out there. And yet there's loads of good players out there that are seemingly so cheap relative to normal market valuations. Connor, I'll start with you, mate. Like, I know we've had this conversation a few times, but why is it, do you think? I know we're all going to probably say go and get Douglas Luiz or whatever, but just outside of that sort of statement, do you think that Thomas Frank feels the same way as the fans do? Because Tottenham Hotspur, the football club, seemingly have ignored this position for about 4 years. And we've never really replaced Moussa Dembele. I mean, Højbjerg was a good, if Højbjerg had a bit of a yard more pace on him, he'd have been a top-class player. But why is it that the clubs seem to constantly just overlook this, even in the midst of a wonderful window where there's opportunities right now to go and get a monster six for relatively cheap money? We're still not linked with any of them. I don't understand why.
Yeah, look, I think, I mean, I'd argue we didn't replace Wanyama, right, even before Dembele, because he was probably the more sort of
more
natural
six.
Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it? Because it's probably Ange's biggest downfall, right? Particularly in his system where, the six was even more important because they were so isolated rather than playing, sort of double pivot or whatever. So, it's crazy that he never signed one. We've got so many eights at the moment, right? Bentancur is definitely eight. I think people's views on Bentancur have now changed because he's been asked to play this position again. It comes back to this misprofiling point when a couple of years ago everyone was saying how great Bentancur was, including myself, and he was probably the second best player in the team after Kane, right, when he was playing in his actual position. So maybe he'll get back to that when he's not asked to play in this isolated six. But I mean, for me, it's a critical signing. And to your point, there are options where we're not talking. I love Adam Walton, for example, right? And I think he could play in that number six as a sort of not quite a monster six, but like a you know, break up a lot of play, and he's a better passer than some of the monster sixes, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I think that's less important in the Ange versus Frank system, but it's never going to happen. But other than him, you know, there's a lot that are, you know, they're talking 25 million for the likes of Paulinho, for the likes of Douglas Luiz. It just feels like the biggest no-brainer of no-brainers, and I'm not sure why there aren't any material links above and beyond what our own fans are speculating.
Yeah, again, this is are the fans, you know, what is the to pardon the phrase here, is the fan tail wagging the club dog a little bit, James? What's your thoughts, mate? Like, are the fans are sitting there demanding things, but the club are like, what do they know? These like they don't know what like we're going to go in our direction and shut the fuck up, Tottenham fans.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, I do think a little bit it is like that, because I've seen us link with more kids than we have first teamers. To be honest, even now, I still see, oh, there's a guy from Leeds or there's a guy from here. For me personally, even if he wasn't to go for a monster six, I think you then need a defensive-minded eight. So, like for me, Paulinho would be good. Edison, Douglas Luiz, Wharton. There's loads there that can play the number 8/6. Because I think personally, I think Frank might actually play like a double pivot rather than one holding and two in front. So even if he does that, I think you still need to get an all-rounded, defensive-minded eight to sit next to Bentancur. And if it's not going to be your sort of monster number 6, it has to be someone of the like mind of somebody like, you know, like Alonso, where you just get the ball, play it easy. Modric, get the ball, play it easy. Not saying that they have to be that good, but if you're not going to get a number 6, you have to get somebody to control a game with the ability to slow it down, speed it up, control the tempo of the game, to move things forward. So for me, it doesn't have to be a number 6, even though that's what I want. But yeah, there has to be something added to that midfield.
Yeah, Jay, how about you, mate?
Yeah, no, I think the guys have kind of landed the point well. It's one of these things where it's different threats like are exposed by different systems. So when the manager's coming in and he plays it like I for the longest time could not understand why we were playing a lone 6, because it's one of the most difficult positions to play in world football. There's like 3 people that can play it. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, even if your guy, like, it's like one of those things, like, you know, that game like Vertonghen had against Dortmund, and people will joke, oh, it shaved a year and a half off his career, kind of thing, because it was such a good game. I'm like, every time you ask Bissouma to play a worldie of a 6 game, yeah, you get like 5 of them a season, because the level of focus and concentration it's required. You know, it's a shame that Ange realized later on that like the double pivot could work, and it benefits most of our midfielders, because it would have been a great help even in season 1 when there was multiple games when we couldn't do the right thing. I think when we look at the 6 now, like the guys in the comments, some great points about like Carrick or like Pirlo, or it really depends on how you want the construction of your midfield to go. Like, do you want somebody who's going to sit in front of the defense and then, you know, be like a playmaker? You see it with Rice sometimes, yeah. I think Declan Rice is incredible, but his ability to progress the ball when he's playing in the 6 means that sometimes he needs his handheld. You need to play like a Jorginho next to him. So now they bring in Zubimendi, and now Zubimendi's going to play the 6 because they say, okay, Rice struggles doing this. This isn't the best thing for him. So we're going to move Rice to 8, and we're going to play Zubimendi as the 6. So he's going to pass the ball out, and Rice can double up and drop back. But do you see what I mean? So with this, we need a 6. The specific type of 6, I don't know, because I don't know how Frank wants to construct his midfielder. A Paulinho could work. A João Gomez could work. Do you know what I mean? But then he might turn around, see Bissouma in a pivot, and think, oh, okay, I could work with you for a year. Like, I don't know what he wants. I think when Ange came in, everyone knew we need a left-sided centre-back. Don't even think about not signing a left-sided centre-back. Do you know what I mean? There was a universal point from the fan base. And I think we're at that with the 6. I think we all know we need a 6. The specific kind of 6 is dealer's choice. Up to you, the club. But don't
the other point I'd add,
line up first game of the season without a 6. Because we all know we need a 6, right?
The other point that I think is, you know, impacts who we sign at 6 is whether Romero goes or not as well. And Sean, we spoke about this before, but, you know, if we don't replace Romero with a ball playing centre back who's so good at progressing the ball through the lines, etc., etc. We really do need someone. You're going to have to replace the sum of the parts again. So you need to find a six then who's really good at progressing the ball. And I think that's I think that's another point to consider when we think about who we are going to sign in the six, is whether Romero's still at the club or not. I hope he still is, but it will change it, I think.
Yeah. It's non-negotiable for me if the club don't do it. And how obviously the problem is, though, right, is you always have to move these players on. I mean, Bissouma's got one left on his contract, right? So is there any risk, do you think, that there's going to be a bit of like the sort of thing you might be seeing with Gahey at Liverpool? I don't know if he might be going to Liverpool, but he might stay for his contract to run it down to get a decent, pay packet. Same with Casemiro at United. If these players that we want to go are just cop blocking our own progress, how can you hate Daniel Levy for not bringing, or whoever, Johan Lang, for not bringing a player in if you have to move players on first, and the players that we want to move on are just cop blocking the life out of our own progress? Jay?
Well, it's a funny point, Sean, isn't it? Because people are moaning a lot about, our lack of movement in terms of buying players. But the other side of that coin that no one's really talking about is the fact that we're not fucking selling anyone either. And there's no one linked with any of our players, right? Other than, the odd article about Son maybe going to LA
Son or Solomon, that's basically it, isn't it?
There's who's really linked with Bissouma right now? A little bit about Fenerbahce. Is that because of Mourinho? And they're just trying to cut. There's no one sort of really credible is making any links with our players to other clubs at the moment.
There's not a single link anywhere, right?
No, and to me that's worrying, right? In terms of just,
I think it's more worrying. I genuinely think it's more worrying, lads. Like, I think that there's like every other player and his dog is linked a million times a day to Manchester United. Have got 6 players that are on 200 grand a week that they want to get rid of, and they can't get rid of them. But at least there's people that are interested in them. There's no links with Bissouma apart from going to Fenerbahce, and who knows whether he wants to go out there.
But Sean, are you that because with those kind of signings, I'm we've got those kind of things. I look at it and I'm not too worried because the club is in a unique position because obviously we've got a new manager coming in, and he wants to evaluate the squad, and I know people might look at that as excuses. And I get it. I get it. It sounds excusey. As somebody that doesn't like to make excuses, that sounds like an excuse. I hear it. But however, it's not an excuse because we are looking at a situation where we have to give the manager time to evaluate his squad. Look at Gravenberch under Slot versus how he was under Klopp. Like under Slot, team of the year, one of the best midfielders in the league. Under Klopp, 2 left feet on the verge of the exit, things like that. Different strokes for different folks. We have to give the manager time, and that means even like Son, people are so convinced he's leaving. I mean, he's going on pre-season tour, more or less guaranteed. What if he starts banging it in? What if there's synergy? What happens then? Are we forcing the captain out?
It's so typical, isn't it? It's so typical. The players that we want to see gone, all of a sudden putting weldies in pre-season. It's like that dog was taken to the vet for the last time before the injection.
I was on my knees for Davinson Sanchez to stay. I was like, come on, brother. Come on. Run it back one more year.
One more time. James, how about you, mate? Last word before the guys in a couple of minutes. We're going over to Football Inc. You haven't got to go anywhere. If you want to carry on the conversation, I'm moving over with Johnny on Football Inc. in 2-3 minutes time. So stay right there. James, sort of last word for you, my man. Players leaving. Before you can bring players in, you do have at some point. I mean, Chelsea don't seem to do it this way. Chelsea just seem to buy everybody anyway and worry about the details later. But we need to probably, right? And who's coming in for these guys?
So for me, I personally think that's the fault for us selling players is Daniel Levy. I think Daniel Levy is one of those guys that bangs on the door of Chelsea's club when he wants to buy someone, for example, and they go, "Oh, fucking hell, but let's see what we can get out of him." That's the kind of mentality. I think the moment they go for their scouting list, imagine say Bournemouth, they go, "What about Bissouma?" They kind of all look at each other and think, "No, I ain't fucking going speaking to Daniel Levy for Bissouma. That's too much hard work. I'll look elsewhere." And that, for me, is why personally I think that we never sell anybody. Because Daniel Levy wants every. It's the right thing to do, right? Listen, if your service is worth a certain price, if your asset is worth a certain price, get what you believe it's worth. But there has to be within reason. If I go to a job and say, oh, that's going to cost £100, they go, look, I've got 90 quid. Can you do it? You go, you know what? Fair enough. Yeah, whatever. Whereas for me, I think that conversation with Levy would be going about £99.
I know Flowers Plumbing, and I know if you offer £90 for this man's fine craftsmanship, he's going to say, do you know how talented I am? Do you know the level of this service?
Listen, I'm trying to advertise it, man. You can't be doing it while I'm advertising.
Are we saying that Daniel Levy is that 9 out of 10 at the bar who's always single? And everyone's like, yeah, I'm not going out with her anymore, mate. She's a fucking nightmare. She's an absolute nightmare. She doesn't give you any. She doesn't nosh you up. She sits there fucking worried about this, worried about that all the time. It's not worth it, mate. Stay clear of that absolute lunatic.
Yeah, exactly. It would be that, wouldn't it? It'd be like, right, try get a deal. And they're like, yeah, I'm up for this. I'll get a deal. Who am I seeing? Daniel Levy. Oh, no, you're all right. No, you're right. Yeah. He wants £50 million. For who? Yeah. It's like, it's not happening.
I hear you, boys. I hear you. Guys, I want to say a massive thank you to all three of you for coming on. It's been a really cracking show, mate. It was a lot of fun. Please get over to @LevyNomics1882 on Twitter. Connor, I was going to ask you today. I haven't got run out of time, unfortunately. I was going to ask you for your take on the podcast thing about the Levy being in Qatar or whatever. We have to do that on the next show over the weekend or tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll circle back for that. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that. I saw some of that.
Are you coming up? We're gonna get Jay on that one as well. Then 100%. Please get over to J-Rated-R as well on Twitter. He's going to become a regular on the channel hopefully over the summer. Really enjoying
James. Great. This is the first time we like Fantastic Four. Johnny. We can rotate him in and out. Don't worry about him. We can save the Solomon chat for Tuesday. Do you know what I'm
saying? We're gonna do it, James. You haven't got a social? Have you, James? You want James Flower?
No. I go undercover.
Undercover, okay. Undercover. not your business though, mate. That's very much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, I'm undercover unless you want some fine quality plumbing. In which case,
pretty sure we can all find out.
The website is www.
All right, guys, we got to go. Stay where you are. 800 people in the chat. We're going to go straight across the football link. I want to say a massive thank you to Jay, to Connor, to James. I'm so sorry. I also didn't get these Mr. Pox office for the super chats. Holla from Lucy and I to Bugsy Malone's guests. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Pox office, didn't see these, mate. Dane is more Scarlett herself go than Johansson. Scarlett Johansson, I think we're saying there. Love that, mate. Thank you very much for the super chats, boys and girls. Thank you very much for your time and attention. We'll see you over on Football Inc. Appreciate the three of you. Awesome show, guys. I'll see you next one. Take care. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.